The third that I did want to, that just struck me and I did want to have you comment on was, you said be a perspective keeper. So what does that mean and why is it important? And more importantly, what can parents do to be a perspective keeper?
So assuming it's a family it's important to them that their children have a perspective that's not only what they might have as of today, which means that if one of your clients is creating or has created a lot of wealth, usually what that means is the children in that family, the next gen in that family, gets an exposure to a lifestyle that they yet can't afford, and maybe even not what the wealth creating generation grew up in. So there's this, assuming that's the family profile, because it's a little bit different if you're generation 4 or 5 in a family of wealth. But in a family like that, the parents will always say to me, how do I, and sometimes they'll use this language, how do I keep the middle class values that I grew up in, yet my children, and some have said to me, have never flown on a commercial plane yet. And there's that dance on the reality is I don't want to be ashamed of what we've worked hard to create, but I also don't want it to undermine the next generation. So that's when I talk about being a perspective keeper. So being a perspective keeper, I use two examples. Let's say most of your family vacations are at whatever you deem to be a luxury experience, which is very common. It's people want to enjoy, and celebrate their success. But one way to be a perspective keeper on that aspect is, what about a vacation once a year where the family has a very limited budget? And whatever that means to that family, an entire family has a $1,000 or a $2,500 budget. Now they have to come around and say, how are we going to make the most of an experience like this? How are we going to do it? So it's less about all the luxury that's possible, but more about what meaning they want to put into it. So you can have a perspective of not every trip seems to have the same experience associated with it. Or another one could be that maybe part of our giving back is not just not only writing a check to a charity or a church or whatever it might be, but we as a family roll up our sleeves and whatever that means, go to a community, go to a perspective that we don't typically have every day in our lives as a family, so that our children get that experience of not everyone gets to experience what we get to experience because of where we are financially. So helping create those experiences, not create guilt or shame about wealth, that's not the goal, is just to keep some perspective, because it could be easy to lose it when the wealth becomes the norm to be able to have experiences in life. So it's just trying to do little things like that, and being conscious of it usually helps.